Hi everyone in cloud computing, and welcome to episode 15 of the Cloud Computing Training Show with Brad Nelson and internationally recognised and world's #1 cloud industry expert and thought leader, David Linthicum. This show is sponsored by Nelson Hilliard, cloud computing recruitment specialist, placing great people in cloud, IoT, fintech and AI. This week we're excited to have James Staten as our special guest. James is the global head of marketing at Equinix, one of the world's largest data center providers. James is a cloud expert with 20 years experience in marketing, business development and corporate strategy. Hi Dave, hi James, a warm welcome to you both. It's exciting to have you both part of the training show this week.
Yeah, it's great to have James on, especially opining on this, because he has great insights. I've had him on the podcast dozens of times. He's by far my best guest, and he always has the best answers. So we're lucky to have him on today. How you doing, James?
I'm doing great, and it's a real pleasure to be with you guys. This is going to be a fantastic topic, and one that every CIO and everybody in the IT profession really needs to pay attention to, because just because these new disruptive technologies are coming doesn't mean you got to quickly become an expert in all of them.
Absolutely right there, James. So in this week's show, we'll be talking about the trends in cloud computing that strategic businesses will have to prepare for in the coming year, and how quickly should we react to new trends when considering training. So over to you, David.
Yeah, I'll set this up, and I'd love to get James's input on this, because we've discussed this a couple of times. And so we have lots of shiny objects now in front of us. We have IoT, we have blockchain, we have chatbots, we have data analytics, we have deep learning, machine learning. The list goes on, and chances are we're going to adopt 3 or 4 new buzzwords in the next 3 or 4 months. And the reality is when I talk to my clients and talk to people who listen to this show and also read my blog on InfoWorld, they're always feel like they're being left out of a party. And what I tell them is that ultimately you have to look at the technology and its applicability to the business, not necessarily the technology unto itself as something that's new and exciting. And that seems to be a disappointing answer. I think everybody wants to get blockchain trained and IoT trained and things like that. But James, what has your experience been out there with your customers looking at the newest technology? Are they adjusting too quick? Does the demand and the desire probably not equate with the business requirements?
Yeah, it's a really good question. As the global head of market development, my team looks at all of our vertical markets and determines what those vertical markets need from us and what services they're investing in. And sadly, what we see more often than not is that they may be aware of these topics and technologies, but they oftentimes are not moving as fast as they probably should, because they oftentimes don't realize that there is a digital disruptor in their market, and they need to adapt to that. And they also oftentimes think about the world in just their vertical market segment, and they ignore or are not paying attention to the fact that ecosystems are no longer just vertical. Like a really simple example, if we talk about car manufacturers who are now pulling terabytes of data off of every single car that's out there in the field, it's not just the sub-component manufacturers in the auto industry who want that information. Insurance companies want that. Healthcare companies want that when there's been an accident. Governments want that information. And so they've got to be prepared to start sharing that information across those industries. And if you're in one of those other industries, yeah, you need that car information. So you need to start paying attention to this stuff. And so this is really challenging for organizations, because they need to be thinking about not just what are the technologies, but what are the business model impacts that these technologies could have? And is that our business model, or is it an area in which we could potentially go, as opposed to just something that might disrupt us?
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I think we're looking for the disruptive technologies where we can disrupt our market. And so the ability for the automobile industry, to adopt some of the technologies and the processes that Teslas are doing right now, versus the other big companies that are operating in more archaic ways. And their ability to disrupt the market and basically create a new market is something that the bigger companies need to start to look at, or else they're going to be disrupted out of their market immediately. So technology becomes kind of a key strategic enablement for their ability to kind of do things differently and innovative in the space. It's just there can't be this mass adoption of everything and anything that comes down the line. So they really need to kind of identify what's critical to them, what's innovative to them, and also take some risks. I mean, let's get 60 people trained up in blockchain. Let's get 60 people trained up in cloud-based databases. Let's get hundreds of people trained up in machine learning, because we're going to go ahead and place some bets in making that happen. But the mass migration of the training programs into whatever seems to be the current managed by magazine topic probably isn't the right answer. Even though I don't want to discourage them from moving in that direction, I would urge them to kind of, take inventory and what your business is going to be now, 1 year, 2 years, and 5 years down the line, figure out the enabling technologies are going to make a difference, and align the training programs to those enabling technologies. Is that about right?
Yeah, and a really good example that you brought up there is blockchain, because a lot of people think that blockchain is only a financial thing. It's only a alternative currency model. That is not the case. Blockchain is an alternative to ledgers, and every single industry gathers information, needs to validate transactions that happen between different parts of their organization, their customers, their ecosystem, and so forth. And there's upside opportunity to using blockchain to ensure that, because they gain some abilities to verify and validate what transactions took place. Have we had third parties validate that that transaction did take place? And did those transactions happen in the proper order? And that's where we can really see a lot of upside from using blockchain. So this is some of the things that people need to be thinking about. Not only what is the technology, but more importantly, where does it apply to our business? And what is the circumstance and the upside from applying that? And they also need to be thinking too about, when does it make sense to fit it into my organization? Is this a Horizon 1 service that I need to add into my existing products and that has immediate appeal to my immediate customers? Or is this a Horizon 2 technology for my company, something that I need to be thinking about adding in somewhere in the next 18 months? And is it a complementary service to the services we have? Or is it adding a new product or a new value proposition that might bring in new revenue and bring in new customers? Or is this technology Horizon 3? 3 to 5 years down the line, we got some time to think about it. The applicability right now isn't appealing. Our customers don't need it right now. But boy, if we're not ready in 3 to 5 years, let's get disrupted.
So do your customers come to your team with these sorts of questions? In other words, as they're migrating into a colo-based system, they're looking at what's going to be disruptive going on. Are you teaming with them to understand not only what's probably going to be disruptive, but how the enabling technologies are going to run in your centers?
Yes, exactly right. And two good examples of that is the Internet of Things, or IoT gathering. One of the key things they ask us is, who are some of the other customers, whether you can name them or not, who are using you for that purpose? And one of the biggest value propositions they can get from using our facility is the digital edge. Because when you sell your cars, you don't sell them just to people in Chicago. You sell them to people all across the globe. And you need to be able to gather the information from the sensors of those cars in all the major metros where you have sold those cars, so that you can aggregate the information, tie it together with Google Maps insights, tie it together with local weather information, so that you can feed back to that car, to that driver, gee, there's a bad situation coming. If you're going to go from here to there, be careful going there. And so that's one thing they have to look at, is how can I really take advantage of a digital edge strategy, and do you have enough metros where I have my products that's important. On the other one that you brought up, blockchain. A lot of questions are coming up about, if I set up blockchain, one of the key things about blockchain is that I need to have at least 3 organizations who are going to be verifying and validating that the transactions that are captured in that blockchain are happening in the right order and are validated across all of those compartments. Do I really want those 3 parties talking to each other over public internet connections, which may not be encrypted, which may not have really good performance, when I need to validate that this transaction took place, then that one, when those transactions might all happen within a second of each other? That's not going to work if it goes over a public internet connection in which there is so much delay that you get these responses back from them 5 to 7 seconds later. You can't verify that. So that's why they come to us and say, how can I use the private interconnections to guarantee that all the people that are validating all of the transactions in my blockchain actually do have very fast connections and have consistency in their time zone and their time analysis. So those are kind of the investments that we're making to ensure and prove to them that, yes, this is what you will be able to get through the interconnections we provide, and here are some examples of some customers, and if we can connect you to those customers and they're willing to talk publicly about it, as is often the case with the customer advisory board members we have, then we will do that.
So Internet of Things, that whole area, it's growing up. If we're going to kind of decompose that, that's a lot more complex than even something like blockchain. So there's sensors that consume information, there's data analytics, there's marriage with machine learning, all these various things out there. Just answering a general question, if you can, in your business, how much information is flowing into the data centers that are being transmitted from sensors versus other computers?
Yeah, so we're obviously early in IoT, so we haven't seen the highest volume of sensor information coming in, but we're already seeing as much as a terabyte an hour coming from certain devices and manufactured equipment. We're seeing a lot of devices in which an individual device might only send about 500 megs per minute, but there will be 700 of them within a single city. And so all of that needs to be brought into one location. So we're seeing a lot more growth in traffic coming from future IoT devices than we have seen historically and are even seeing now from traditional computer connections, even mobile connections to phones.
So Brad, back to you in terms of your role in doing recruiting, and how much of how much request for training or basically training advice are people asking for, where you think they're overstating or understating the need for that particular training? Hopefully that question made sense.
Yeah, it's perfect sense. I think I get a lot of calls coming in, and people want to talk, emails as well, people want to talk about training in cloud and where their focus should be. And in fact, you and I have spoken about this several times on training, and it's one of those things, and it really is the shiny object, isn't it? One guy's emailed me, he wants to talk to me at the end of this week about, he wants to learn blockchain. And his reason why he wants to learn blockchain is because he's interested in buying cryptocurrency. He's really got no real knowledge on IT at all, other than he's seen the shiny objects in the room, and he's chasing those. So that will be an interesting and short conversation. But essentially, AWS is a big thing, obviously, when it comes to cloud architecture, and that's something that people have a lot of need around. So I think that if people are doing their due diligence on what the training requirements are, and they know where they're going to fit into an organization or a company, that's an important factor going forward. But it's equally the research people need to do. What with regards to training, what is it they want to do? What's their passion? What's their output that they want to have? What do they want to give to an organization? So it really drives whether it's into the IoT, fintech, or artificial intelligence. There's lots of different remits that people need to identify that they've got not just a basic understanding for, but their long-term passion that's driving them to pursue these career paths. I think that's fundamentally important. And you and I have spoken about reverse engineering certain technologies to put it into context of not only what the future employer requires, but equally what does the person require in that job, because it's equally important that the employer is going to get someone that's going to be good at their job, but equally they need someone who's going to enjoy being good at their job. So finding the right training, doing the due diligence. Obviously you do some great courses on Lynda, there's some great information on YouTube and just general Boolean searches you can do for really drilling down into the specifics of what the future requirements could be, and finding out where you're passionate in the future. So knowing what drives you now is one thing, but equally second guessing what your passions will be in the future, I think is a necessity. Almost second guessing what your needs and wants will be, only by identifying what you want and need now. So it really is a basis of people's passion and focus on pursuing the right sort of training. And I often think outside the box when it comes to IT recruitment. And I'm not your standard recruiter by a long shot, because there's nothing wrong with standard recruitment. But I like to get under the skin of the human being and what empowers them to do well. You know, what are their drivers to do well, not only at work but personally as well, because I think there's a huge crossover in regards to how people function, you know, being happy at work, happy in their home life. And I think that's really key to starting a training journey that's going to give them the fulfillment and the challenges that they want.
I think it's great advice. So James, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm on an elevator ride with you. I'm a Global 2000 CEO, and fat chance that's ever going to happen. And I'm asking you, what are the 3 enabling technologies in priority order that I should be training my people on? What would your response be for that?
Well, yeah, I would ideally want to get his take on where his business is going, because saying what are the 3 that would universally apply to every single Global 2000 probably isn't that realistic. But if I had to say which ones are we seeing the broadest appeal across all companies, they would definitely be Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, and cloud services. Now, you may not consider cloud services to be one of those top 5 new emerging categories, but if you take a look at the statistics from Forrester and IDC and other firms, we still are only seeing enterprises using about 15 to 20% of their applications in the cloud today. And the reason I would say the other 2, we've obviously talked about IoT, and that's not just if you're a manufacturer and you're gathering sensors, but what is your company doing with all of the information that comes from all these different devices from people in your ecosystem and others. Artificial intelligence is very related to that. Now that you have data sets coming from all over the place, your old historical data warehouse, new sales that are being done over mobile devices, sensor information is coming from IoT, how quickly are you analyzing all of that, coming to conclusions that you need to act on? That's why artificial intelligence is so critical. And obviously a subset of artificial intelligence is machine learning, and what can you empower the machines to do with different algorithms to give you those insights and those values. And why cloud computing is such a critical piece of this is that a lot of the services and capabilities that you need, you may not have the skills for, but you may be able to find the skills you're looking for as a service in a lot of these cloud capabilities. So you want to be able to tap into those things and add them into your architecture as quickly as you can. And very much to Brad's point, you want to train the right people that have the right passion for this, but you as a CEO need to set the guidelines inside your company about what training you're going to fund. And that has to be aligned to the passion, but it also has to be aligned to the skills. Is somebody really have the baseline skills necessary to channel that passion into those key initiatives and drive it forward? And then are they in the proper position, or are you willing to give them an opportunity to move into a new role in which they can really apply that technology to the right part of your business and take those outcomes forward?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. And also I like the fact you said really it depends, and this is the way I answer the questions, but you gave us a good general response in terms of generally. However, if you're an average company, these are the important technologies to look at. So back to you, Brad, take us home.
Well, guys, thank you so much for being a part of the training show this week. It's been really insightful, and I hope everyone's thoroughly enjoyed watching it. And thanks, James, for being our special guest this week.
Oh, thanks very much for having me. And one group we didn't really talk about is network administrators. So often network administrators have not seen the kind of innovation in their area that would allow them to be an innovative driver. But now we're at a point where software-defined networking is becoming a standard. And they have the opportunity to apply their thinking to how you drive innovation, how you use interconnections, how you use SD-LAN to really enable a lot of these same things we're talking about. Really good, modern networking is necessary for IoT to take off. It is necessary for blockchain resolution to happen fast. And this is going to be a very important role. And now network administrators are going to hold appeal to developers and to enterprise architects, because they can now turn on networking capabilities as a service.
Fantastic. They become the god of the industry. All hail the network administrator. I feel that all the network administrators are going to go out and buy some Darth Vader costumes and run around trying to grab people's throats, breathing really heavily. Okay, on that note, I'm getting a bit silly now, chaps. It's got to that time of day. Look, I really appreciate your time today, James and Dave. It's been awesome having you both on the show. Thanks, Dave.
Happy to be here, man. Peace.
Always. And thanks again for your time, James. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks to everyone who's listened to this show, and keep listening. And if we can be even more valuable to you along the way, let us know.
100% on that. No, I think that's great. We're always covering some great content, and these shows this week have been pretty awesome. So you've been awesome, James. Thanks on your very valuable content.
Appreciate it. Glad to be a part of this.
And thanks for watching, everyone. We really hope you enjoyed watching this show as we did recording it. So remember to like, comment and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future shows. And also you can find James on Twitter, which is @Staten7, and David's on Twitter also, which is @DavidLinthicum, and myself on Twitter, which is @Nelson_Hilliard. So thanks again for watching, everyone.